Good morning and welcome to the Seminole County Hurricane Update here on Hurricane Milton. We appreciate everybody being here today and tuning in to take advantage of this information that we're about to give to the public. First and foremost, I want to say a big thank you to our residents here and our citizens of Seminole County. We've asked you to do certain things. We're very thankful out of respect for your fellow citizens and to our first responders that you have actually done that. We know this is a stressful time. We're now in the third quarter. This is the recovery and evaluation phase. Often things don't seem to be moving as quickly as necessary for some, but trust me, you've got a great emergency management team, and we're working directly with FP&L and our partners at Duke to make sure that things get stood up. There's many areas throughout the county that are currently flooded and inaccessible to the power companies, so just be patient, show a little compassion, and understand our first responders, as well as many of these individuals that are here, the line crews, they're away from their families, far, far away from home, to come here and actually help us. You're going to hear from Alan Harris today, our Emergency Management Director, who's done such great work on behalf of the citizens of Seminole County and his team. He's going to give you a lot of specific updates on things that you need to know about openings and what's actually occurring as we move forward. I want to take a moment and thank Governor DeSantis for his leadership, but I also want to give a special thanks to Congressman Corey Mills, who's here with us today, who yesterday made arrangements for a semi-tractor trailer load of supplies, including generators, to come into our community and help those most in need, and we're most thankful for that. We also want to thank Senator Rubio, Senator Scott, and our other leaders at the state level who've helped support us with assets through the Emergency Management, the Department of Emergency Management in the state of Florida, and all the leadership they've shown and assets they've afforded us to do. With that said, I'd like to introduce Congressman Mills to have a few words. Congressman. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Look, I want to echo a bit of what Jay Zimbauer has just said. You know, we're blessed in the state of Florida that we've got one of the greatest governors and that we understand how to deal with true national disaster without having to have federal involvement. But I also think that that's in part because we have great leaders. You know, we have great sheriffs like Sheriff Dennis Lima, who has really helped to ensure that the community not only has to, not shut down or to be on some type of a curfew, but also understands our citizens here in Seminole County. It's the same thing when we talk about Alan Harris, who's done an amazing job, who I coordinated with yesterday for the Office of Emergency Management and his team to bring in a semi-truck to allow it to have everything from toiletries to food, water, non-perishables. We had generators that we could actually get to our street lights that was immediately deployed from what Alan was telling me, but also things like toys for children. You know, too many times we forget about the fact that sometimes these houses are completely eliminated. They've lost everything they have. And just having the ability for a child to be able to hug a teddy bear, to have a toy, gives some semblance of normalcy. And that's what we're trying to return here as quickly as possible, whether it's restoring power in the communities that are most impacted, whether it's helping those until the receding waters there in areas around the lakes, and just bearing in mind that our lakes have not crested yet. We're still going to see the continuations in surge. You know, I can remember being at this exact location in 2021 and helping when it came to bringing in swamp buggies so that we didn't create wakes so we could get people out or delivering materials. Our community understands this is about America supporting America. This isn't about waiting for the federal government to step in. This is our local communities understanding that a stronger community is a stronger county, a stronger district, a stronger state, and a stronger nation. And so I'll continue to work within the community to help those in need. I'll continue to support both Seminole County and Volusia, and I'm here, and my office is here to help anyone who may be in need. With that, I thank you so much for the time, and we appreciate it. God bless you all.
Thank you, Congressman. Next up, we're going to have Mr. Alan Harris, the Director of Emergency Management. And I cannot emphasize to our community how blessed we are to have Alan and his leadership and his team right here in Seminole County. If you were there to watch, it's literally watching a military mission and the planning and execution that he's brought to the table and continues to execute, and having all these assets. These things don't happen in a vacuum. Without Alan's leadership and his great team, which they're all away from their families. They're not able to go home, clean up their debris, not able to go home and be with their children. And so, Alan, we respect you. We thank you immensely, and please come up and have a few words and tell us what's happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you for your support. And I'd like to also echo the thanks to the Congressman. We've been texting for about, 3 or 4 days. Even before the hurricane came, we were texting about the different types of supplies that we would need. And he said, hey, I've got a semi coming to you right now. And I was super excited to have that. Those generators that came in, they were immediately deployed to assisted living facilities that were without power last night to provide life-saving power. So I know that before this press conference that he got that information, and I just again want to thank you for doing that for us. The emergency management team, of course, continues to work in the response mode. We are still in response mode here in Geneva as the St. Johns River continues to increase and is not right now showing a crest, so it's going to continue to increase. It does show somewhere where it's leveling off, so it does look like there's a possibility that it'll level off, and it will, if that holds true, and if there's not additional rain, it will be below the record level in Hurricane Ian. It's still high, but it is not at that catastrophic level that we experienced during Hurricane Ian. We are all praying that that's the case. We have worked very hard over the last 24 hours to open up points of distribution. One here at the Rural Heritage Center in Geneva. We've opened up a sandbag location just around the corner at the old Geneva Volunteer Fire Station on 2nd Street, and that's for anticipated flooding here in the Geneva community. We've also set up other points of distribution in some outlying locations where the damage was really hard hit. So those locations include the Salvation Army in Sanford. I want to thank that partnership with that organization. Midway Safe Harbor. I want to thank those folks over at Midway Safe Harbor, and Seminole Community Church, which is up in the northwest quadrant of Seminole County, which also is expected to experience increased flooding along the St. Johns River. So we are continuously working as we identify other damaged areas to place points of distribution. We have 2 or 3 additional ones that should be placed today, and either should service sometime today, start servicing today, or tomorrow. You can contact the Citizens Information Hotline at 407-665-0000 for additional information on those locations where the nearest point of distribution is for you. And as mentioned earlier, those have tarps, food, water. This particular one has some additional supplies. Thank you. And so, very important out here, right, as the water rises, mosquito spray. So there's some mosquito spray here as well, so that's going to be real important out here as the water continues to rise and, of course, sit. So we are opening up some additional sandbag locations. I know that seems unusual for all the other counties in the state of Florida, except for maybe our friends in Lake and Volusia County, which of course has to deal with Astor and those communities. But we are opening up sandbag locations to help with the additional flooding. Tomorrow we're going to have one at Wayside Park. That is in the northwest quadrant of Seminole County near Sanford. We'll be opening up one at Sylvan Lake Park. We may be able to open that one up today, but definitely it'll be open up tomorrow for folks around Lake Markham and some of the flood-prone areas up there, as well as along the St. Johns River. Our shelters are in the process of closing. We've been able to close every general population shelter. So all the general population shelters are now closed in Seminole County. We have a shelter transition team. I want to thank our Department of Community Services. They go in immediately after the disaster and work with the families to identify where their next port is, and if they need additional assistance, assisting them to get some long-term housing. We did have a few folks in our shelter that their home was destroyed. So we needed to work with those families to place them in a location to make them comfortable for probably an extended period of time while there's some work done there. Debris is a big deal, right? Debris is the teams are here, the haulers are here, the management team is here, and they're going to be moving through the neighborhoods with the claw trucks that we're all used to seeing. So please be patient, but they are on their way. We'll start that very, very soon. So you'll see those roving around our community very soon. Our landfill is closed for normal services, although we were able to open it up today. So we are opening up the landfill today, but only for vegetation debris, yard work, and that is for residents. Sure. Hang on just one second. Is that your helicopter? Yeah. So we have. Sure. So you dated yourself there a little, but I understood the reference very well. Yes. So that is actually Seminole County Sheriff's Office helicopter. They have a video downlink with our Emergency Operations Center. They're doing surveillance of the St. Johns River. There are some areas that we can't get into to do damage assessment, so they're helping us with that. So Sheriff, thank you so much for that. So that's what just flew over us. But let me get back to the landfill. The landfill will open today. It is for residents and landscapers only, not for the debris haulers, residents and landscapers only, and it is only for vegetation and yard debris. So if you have collected your yard waste and you want to get rid of it, you can go ahead and expedite that by going directly to the landfill. We have had quite a few individuals with unmet needs. Those are individuals with disabilities, or they're seniors, or maybe they just had heart surgery and they cannot get out and maybe pick up their debris or fix their wheelchair ramp or something like that. If you know of someone, or you are one of those individuals that have that type of issue, please call our Citizens Information Hotline. We have over 105 faith and nonprofit organizations that have pledged support to come help you. So if you contact us, let us know what your unmet need is. We will match you with one of the faith or nonprofit affiliated groups here in Seminole County, and they will come out and help you. And want to thank our faith community for always stepping up, and our nonprofit community for always stepping up and helping in these times. We still have 57,000 individuals without power. Duke and FPL are in our Emergency Operations Center. They have crews out. They're working very difficult challenges in some cases, lines tangled in trees and things like that. So, but they are making some headway, returning power as quickly as possible. There are roads closed, there are traffic signals down, there are other types of issues, flooded roads, things like that. I know the sheriff is going to talk about some of those things. I'm going to let him talk about that, but please be safe as you move about the community. There are a couple traffic signals that still are completely out of power. We've got generators on most of them, but be careful when when you get up to those. So I'm going to let the sheriff talk about that, and actually I'm going to introduce him, or I don't need to introduce him. You all know Sheriff Lima, but Sheriff, thank you so much. Appreciate your partnership.
Thank you. And thank you all for being here. You know, media has been such a fabulous partner throughout this ordeal. When you're going to live coverage, you're showing what's happening in our communities around the clock. It's so incredibly important to public safety professionals because it lets citizens know that they don't have to leave their home to see what's going on. And the information that you've been putting out has been just stellar, and I want to thank you for that. I also want to thank our great Chairman Jay Zimbauer, our county commissioners, who are all in their own individual ways keeping their citizens informed. And of course, Alan Harris runs that emergency management. He and his team prepare all year. And what happens behind the scenes is truly a reflection of what our citizens expect of government, all coming together regardless of political parties and individual areas of responsibility to work on behalf of the citizens of Seminole County. And he does that through policy board calls where there's mayors and managers, constant communication with the city chiefs of police. So what we see here is largely county and federal representatives, but every single part of government is working together in harmony for this, and it's important. And I'll tell you, Congressman Corey Mills has been second to none. During the evening and the early morning hours of the storm, he was in constant, when I say constant communication, 2 or 3 times per hour with me, trying to assess needs, what does Seminole County need, and it's good to have that going on. But looking around the folks that are here and the folks that are standing behind me, we've been here before. This is an incredibly resilient community. Many of the people that live in the Lake Harney, Osteen, Geneva, Lake Jessup areas kind of know what to expect. They've been through these storms before. Some may have moved into the area and have not experienced this. So we kind of go through the list of what you're going to see from us. We transition now. We still have deputy sheriffs at some of the shelters that still have people that are there. We still have full staffing because we do have traffic signals that are without power. Most of those are on generated power, and especially at nighttime, we always want to remind people that you want to treat those intersections as four-way stops. And if you're driving at nighttime, it's more difficult, even if you're a local resident, it's more difficult to see through the darkness of the night that is an intersection. So just be mindful if you're out on the streets. Second, and not so much in Seminole County, but we've seen it in neighboring contiguous counties, really the washout, the damage that water can do to roadways. And we always encourage people that if you see water covering the road, which is very likely to happen more often here in the days following the storm than actually even during the storm, don't drive through that. We rescue vehicles, and sometimes we've had actually openings in the ground, whether they're sinkholes or other types of openings where vehicles have gone in there. We don't want anyone to get injured or harmed as a result of that. As we move our operation to the forward operating areas, particularly here in Geneva, you're going to see a lot of presence with uniform patrol deputy sheriffs. We'll be positioned at a full staffing level until the water recedes. We will staff any area that's common area where people are going to come for clothing, shower, or supplies. We have every one of our assets that are here at the sheriff's office positioned here locally to deploy. In the event that somebody chooses to stay inside their home and they have an emergency, we will get to you either through our heavy vehicles that are positioned out here or one of our vessels. You know, we have our airboats, and we have various boats that you'll see out here. Those are there for evacuations and other types of calls for service. I do want to remind people, one of the things that's lost, and as this has more of a national attention on what's happening here, and particularly the aftermath of the storm, is we have wildlife here in Florida that other areas don't experience. So as that water comes up and it's water into your home and right outside of your house, you then have the additional hazards of alligators, snakes, and all of those things that may be in and around the area. If you're going to choose, if you're in a flooded situation and you're going to choose to evacuate and you're going to contact us or the fire department or resources, please do that during the daylight hours. We're going to be working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to do whatever we can to provide services. But I think it's safer, it's more convenient, it's smoother if you feel like, you know what, the water is coming up and it's going to come up. You know, Alan talks about it, maybe a couple more feet over the next few days. If you're going to make that decision to get out, it's just easier and safer to do it during the daylight hours. If you have any problems at all, call the sheriff's office. We'll be there to provide whatever assistance. It does not have to be crime related. It does not have to be rescue related. We have great relationships, as you can see, from our local, state, and federal partners. We have Congressman Corey Mills here. Yesterday I was on the phone with Senator Rick Scott. An hour and a half ago I was on the phone with Attorney General Ashley Moody. Everyone knows how this flooding affects us here in Seminole County, and they want to provide whatever support and comfort that we have for our citizens. So with that, I'll turn it back over to our Chairman, Jay Zimbauer.
Thank you, Sheriff. And you can tell by not only our citizenry and the actions that they've taken on their own, but the support you have from your government. And as you see behind us is just a sampling of some of the investment that the County Commission has made on behalf of public safety in this county. 2 of these high water rescue Acela units. One was deployed yesterday right here in Geneva to evacuate an individual who was injured and had to be transported to the hospital, that normal apparatus could not get access to his home. And the reason, because the water was too high for your average vehicles to get there. I would urge continued compassion for your fellow neighbors. If you have people at risk or at need in your community, please check on them. If they have needs, reach out to us and let us know. 2 important things to stay informed. PrepareSeminole.org, that is continually updated with information and resources for our citizens. If you have specific needs or questions, 407-665-0000 is the number that you can call for the Citizens Hotline to find out any information you may specifically need. And again, we'll all get through this together. We appreciate the collaboration with our federal partners, our state partners, all of our local law enforcement, and our first responders. And a special thanks to Mr. Corey Mills, our illustrious Congressman. We sincerely appreciate your support and everything you've brought to our community. Thank you very much, and we look forward to continued relationships and working forward. With that said, we'll open up for questions. Any questions you may specifically have, we'll bring the appropriate individual up.
Surprise, surprise.
Man on the hot seat.
Yes, sir.
So I've been kind of watching the water prediction graph for Lake Harney. Last time I looked, it looked like 10.5, but still climbing. Do we know if we go, and everything's contingent on no more rainfall, which of course would help us all out. How high do you think? Do we think it's good? It was 12.7 after Ian, that was the record. Where do you think we're going with this?
Yeah, so it's a good question related to Lake Harney. For those that didn't get the question, where do we think that the forecast will go? Well, we're showing a leveling off, not really a crest at this point. So we've been working with the hydrologists in the National Weather Service. I'd love to be able to tell you the exact number. I can't. We look at what the rain's going to be, and then of course the rainfall that was south of us. So we definitely look like we're going to be in major flood. So the Faye area. So we know with Tropical Storm Faye, which was back in 2008, those that were around, 46 became a problem. So we are making contingency plans. When we say make contingency plans, that doesn't mean it's going to close. It just means that we need to go ahead and plan for that now. And then the roads that we know, Whitcomb, Jungle, those roads, we know those roads now, unfortunately, because we've been flooded quite a few times. We know what roads will be dealing with.
Those folks out there, we know they're a hardy bunch.
Yes.
If it hasn't flooded them yet, over the next 2-3 days, they need to be getting some sandbags out, right? Because that water's coming up maybe another 2 feet.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's why we made the sandbag location so convenient to them. We wanted to get it real close to them. So if they need those sandbags, which we do encourage them, if they know what happened last time, and when I say last time, Tropical Storm Faye, 2008, even Ian, think about maybe potentially getting some sandbags.
For those who live along Lake Harney, I know after Ian, they were kayaking to their homes. We were out with Corey Mills delivering supplies on that swamp buggy. What do you want them to know ahead of time? Because when did they decide to evacuate? Those decisions and what kind of rescues will be in place for them if needed?
Yeah, so you have an incredible group of firefighters that are actually standing here with us today that operate all these special pieces of equipment and that will go back in there. We hope that people will evacuate before the rescue. We would prefer not to have to use the vehicle for a rescue, but if in the event that they're back there and they can't get out, that's why we have these types of vehicles to get back and help them. We understand some folks will kayak and canoe to their homes. We get that. They want to check on their homes. They want to see around their homes, and we will do exactly the services that we provided last time. We provided dumpsters at the end of the flooded area, and that way if they are back there and they need to bring some stuff and throw them away, we'll put them there. Over the next couple days, this center is actually going to grow. We're going to have a comfort station right across the road from us here where there'll be showers and restroom facilities because the plumbing obviously won't work out there. Washers, dryers, things like that. So to make them as comfortable as possible while they're having to deal with probably a long flood. This is also a little unique in that we flood and stay flooded. So it's going to stay flooded for a while before slowly, and I'm saying slowly, the water goes down. But the people out here understand that. They've experienced it a couple times before.
Alan, I'd like to have you give us the cautionary tale. The storm has passed, but now's when most people get hurt.
Right, absolutely. So,
Those moving forward.
sure. So this is not the time to learn how to use your chainsaw. If you are using a generator, please make sure that it's away from your home. We suggest about 20 feet from your home to make sure that carbon monoxide poisoning. Most people have followed that this time, and I know that because we haven't had a lot of 911 calls related to carbon monoxide in this county, so that's very nice that that's the case. If you are going to do tarping of the roof, make sure that you're very careful when you do things like that, that you slip and you wear the appropriate safety materials, things like that. As the sheriff mentioned, one of our fatalities in Tropical Storm Faye was ants. So what looked like a leaf coming down in a flooded area hit the individual, and it was actually a pile of army ants or fire ants, and that's how they live. If they get trapped on water, and it looked like a leaf, and the individual went into anaphylactic shock. So we want people to be very, very careful when it comes to these things.
Which is also why you don't either drive through water, like the sheriff was saying, because you could drive into a hole. You also don't walk through water, because I've seen those piles of fire ants. You could have 1 million fire ants on an oak leaf.
That's right. Yeah. So you don't want to drive through anything where you can't see the ground. Turn around. Don't drown. The water the road can be washed away. In a couple streets here already during the hurricane, during Milton, the roads did wash away.
I have a question for Congressman.
Yes.
Thought I was going to hand it all to Alan. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Congressman, I know you've talked a lot directly with the county officials. Can you share anything you've heard directly from your constituents about their needs as you've been out talking to them?
Well, again, I think that the needs are kind of what we discussed already, ensuring that we can restore power, making sure we're getting response out there to be able to do assessments on damage, but also helping to replace some of the goods and things that were lost throughout this period. In addition to that, working with my colleagues, whether that be Congressman Greg Stubbe, Congressman Vern Buchanan, Anna Paulina Luna, Byron Donalds, etc., to look at where the additional plus-ups are needed when it comes to federal response. We continue to hear this kind of back and forth misinformation. We are out of money in FEMA. We're not out of money in FEMA. When the reality is that there was over $22 billion that still remained that we knew about that finally Mayorkas had reported. So there was more than enough to take care of the storm. But also we had the Disaster Relief Fund that was plussed up under Petition 11, in which I was an original signatory, and the National Flood Insurance Program that was also plussed up. So there are programs for responses both at the federal level. The issue is that the pace in which the bureaucracy moves, that very slow churning wheel, cannot match that of our private, smaller communities, our local forces that come together, as well as for our state government. And so we're able to kind of factor that in at a higher rate. But that's why I don't wait for federal government like Governor DeSantis doesn't and the rest. I step up, I work with my partners, my charities, and myself to be able to get the supplies in here to be able to respond to exactly the point, which is the constituents who are in need of those key items.
And Congressman, I know you're out here after Hurricane Ian. What did you learn from that in this community that you guys are bringing to the response?
Well, you know that because you were actually on the swamp buggies with me, delivering and pulling people out of their houses and relocating them back during that time. We know the flood areas. We know the areas that are going to continue to see this. But also, as I talked to the chairman about, Jay Zimbauer, it's really also looking at the new communities where you're seeing where they're starting to build at. One community's building at 1.5 feet, 2 feet higher than the other. Then the new community builds at. And what you're doing is you're getting those spillovers into the older communities. And so understanding how we can be responsible in our building, our permitting, but also, again, since we know, having been born and raised here in Central Florida, we know the areas that are most affected. And so being able to respond to those areas quickly, being able to work with people like Alan Harris and Sheriff Lima and the chairman to be able to pre-allocate and designate and distribute those goods to an area for response earlier is really kind of the benefits of having, been here for many years.
One more question for the chairman.
Oh, get in here.
Thank you.
Yes,
I know you've been out and about in the community.
I have.
What kind of sense are you getting from people in the area? We're expecting the flooding.
Yeah, so it's sort of a mixed bag, but for the most part, especially in these flood-prone areas, many, if not, the large percentage have been through this before. And the message that we have communicated and urged is our job at the government side is to be prepared for the worst case scenario and hope and pray that it doesn't manifest. The job of our citizens is for them to prepare. And there's two things we can't control: how our citizens prepare and what the weathers and Mother Nature is ultimately going to do. But we have to prepare for that. But the sentiment has been, oh, we've been through this before. This too shall pass. I've really been thrilled to see some of the folks that have been in this community for 20, 30, 40 years or their entire life actually reaching out and trying to help some of the newer citizens who are arguably haven't been through this and have told me, what are you going to do about the flooding? What about the road washed out? A lot of roads out, especially in this area of Geneva, are private roads. The government has no control. But we're doing everything in our power to help mitigate that the best we can, deploy these kind of assets, so when there's a need, we're there. But for the most part, the sentiment is, we'll get through this. We always have what I call the cowboys who want to just ride it all out. And I would say to you, reconsider. 20, 30 years ago, the chairman himself may consider that. But you can't replace lives. You can replace the things, but you can't replace your loved ones. And for the most part, I think our citizenry, and especially in these flood-prone areas, they understand what we're up against. Anything else for the sheriff? Very well. Well, we appreciate you all coming out today. I hope you all and your families remain safe. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.